Hi, this is Rod Saunders from Jew and Greek. If you're over the age of 50, you probably remember a guy named John Davidson, who was a very popular singer, actor, and game show host. He was the son of a Baptist preacher who had a squeaky clean image which he capitalized on in the entertainment world. Well, at the age of 70, John decided to come out of the closet as an atheist. The wholesome image that he cultivated for years was largely a character that he was playing, which earned him a good living for decades. In this clip, you'll hear him say that he took a couple of courses in college on logic and comparative religions, which is what turned him against religion.
When I got to college, I had to declare a major. And I thought, I love my dad a lot. He's so content. He's so happy as an American Baptist preacher. I'll be a philosophy major and maybe go to seminary, maybe be a minister, be closer to my dad. The first two courses I took were logic and comparative religion. Within 6 months, I questioned any sort of religion that I had. Began to see that, obviously, religion is man-made.
This is one of the reasons it's so crucial to address the misinformation and historical revisionism put out by the secular world regarding Jesus and the Christian faith. We're losing too many young people who go off to universities totally unprepared for the attack on their worldview that they will inevitably encounter. We need to ensure that they not only know what they believe, but why they believe what they believe. They need to be able to counter the secular attacks on creationism, the authority of Scripture, the life and ministry of Jesus, and the role of the Judeo-Christian worldview that provided the ethical foundation for the greatest civilization in history. According to the Assemblies of God, 50 to 67% of their young people are leaving the faith after attending 4 years in a non-Christian university. This is a crisis, and the church has done little in response to the crisis. It's time we started preparing our young people for the secular world before they encounter it. We need to let them know that they're going to hear a lot of views expressed that are contrary to what they've heard growing up. And many of those views are based more on an anti-Christian worldview than they are on facts. What happened to John Davidson in his youth is a very common occurrence. Because he didn't know any better, he fell for the secular rhetoric. Now, in his 70s, Mr. Davidson says that he doesn't need to believe in God to be moral.
I have a code of ethics, and I don't need a supreme imaginary friend, a supreme being, in order to be moral.
Really, John? Gee, I wonder if maybe having a Baptist pastor for a dad might have something to do with your morals. I wonder if maybe growing up in a country that was founded on biblical principles might have something to do with your code of ethics. I wonder if you would have the same code of ethics if you'd grown up in communist Bulgaria or Uganda. It's very difficult to extract one's values from the culture that formulated and cultivated those values. Nobody is raised in an ethical vacuum. Even if you're an atheist, you didn't derive your values from atheism, because atheism presents no eternal truths or absolutes. In atheism, we're all a cosmic accident, taking up space until we become worm food. Your values come from your environment, and the environment that John Davidson grew up in was a Judeo-Christian culture. In the next clip, he says that religion stifles free thought.
I would like to spread that word, that free thought is better than, and being able to think things through is better for self-discovery, and religion stops free thought.
In fact, it's quite the opposite. It was free thought that led Martin Luther and others to risk their lives in opposing the Catholic Church. In the 400 years since the Reformation began, we've seen literally thousands of denominations emerge as religious people had disagreed over theology, church government, and politics. What John and others are going by is the rigid, controlling environment of the theocratic rule of the Catholic Church and Islamic states. Sure, theocracies stifle freedom of thought, just like any other totalitarian structure, But that's a completely different issue from religion in general. If you look over the 20th century, you'll find that tens of millions died at the hands of atheists who were stifling free speech, which is an expression of free thought. Some of the greatest minds in the history of science, men like Johannes Kepler, Isaac Newton, and Blaise Pascal, were devout Christians. Even Albert Einstein, a very free thinker with a vivid imagination, believed in a supreme being. You can call it his imaginary friend if you want, but Einstein had sense enough to look at the incredible order and beauty of creation and recognize that the universe didn't just create itself. But this party line of the secularists, that religion is diametrically opposed to reason and science, is promoted throughout our state universities, many of which were founded by religious institutions. Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Dartmouth, Cambridge, and Oxford all began as religious institutions. But we're supposed to believe that these institutions were created to stifle free thought? In fact, in modern culture, freedom of thought is discouraged more by the secular institutions that want to stifle freedom of speech on university campuses and prohibit professors from questioning Darwinian evolution. People who have never learned the art of critical thinking mindlessly repeat the idea that wars are fought over religion, that our country was founded by deists, or that faith and science aren't compatible. In fact, most wars are fought over land and resources, and only Thomas Paine and maybe one or two other founding fathers could truly be considered deists. And faith and science were always considered compatible until the 19th century, when the world of science adopted a strictly naturalist approach to the scientific method. Apologetics has been called the handmaiden of evangelism. As you read through the epistles, you'll see that a large portion of the writings of Paul, John, Peter, and Jude were dedicated to combating false doctrine and the defense of the faith. It's not enough just to preach the gospel and make converts. We also need to be mindful of the fact that Satan doesn't give up when a convert is made. At that point, he seeks to pull them away from the truth with a variety of false teachings from both believers and non-believers. That's why we always need to be on guard. As my buddy Jay Stillinger says in this clip, we all need to know what we believe and why we believe what we believe.
If you're aware of what's going on in the world today, and I'm sure that you are, you know that our culture has changed dramatically in the last several years. More and more, our nation is becoming a postmodern and a post-Christian nation. And because of that, we as believers, we need to be better equipped in order to give an answer to those that ask us of the faith that is within us.
I've provided a link to Jay's Apologetics video series in the description. Be sure to check it out. Thanks for watching, and remember to click like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell for future notifications. We'll see you next time.